Good morning. I am A.F. Revati, PhD Scholar, Department of Educational Psychology, Tamil Nadu Teacher Education University, Karapakkam, Chennai. My guide, Dr. P.N. Lakshmi Shanmugam, Assistant Professor, Department of Educational Psychology, Tamil Nadu Teacher Education University, Karapakkam, Chennai. Today my topic, Humanistic theory of Carl Rogers theory. Objectives. After completing this model, the prospective teachers are able to acquiring knowledge about the Rogers self-theory, understand the terms, concept of psychology environments, apply the knowledge to analyze the self, develop a skill in the preparation of self-concept, develop interest in knowing the features of Rogers self-theory, develop desirable positive attitude towards Rogers self-theory. Carl Rogers. Humanistic perspective. Rogers self-theory. Carl Ransom Rogers was born in 1902 in Hoke Park, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago. Structure of personality. Rogers does not appear to emphasize structural constructs, preferring to devote his attention to change and develop of personality. There are two such constructs that are of fundamental importance to his theory and may even be regarded as the footing upon which the whole theory rests. These are the organism and the self. காரல் ரோஜர்ஸ் கோட்பாடு அகவய அனுபவங்களின் அடிப்படையிலேயே இளம் குழந்தை புற உலகினை உணர்ந்து கொள்ளுகிறது. மனிதன் நான் என்னுடைய என்று எதனை உணர்கிறானோ அது அவனுடைய தன்னு உணர்வு ஆகிறது. தன்னுணர்வு நன்கு அமைய பெறாதவன் உள சிக்கல்களுக்கு ஆளாகிறான். தனி மனிதன் தன்னு உணர்வுக்கும் அவன் உலகில் பெறும் அனுபவங்களுக்கும் இடையே பெரும் வேறுபாடு இருப்பதே முரண்பாடுகளுக்கு காரணம். இத்தகைய முரண்பாடுகள் தனி மனிதனின் ஆளுமையின் மீது செல்வாக்கு கொண்டுள்ளன. குழந்தைகளை நல்ல முறையில் வளர்க்க வேண்டும் என்றும் நோக்கத்துடன் செயல்படும் பெற்றோர்கள் தம்மை அறியாமலேயே குழந்தைகளும் எதிர்மறை உணர்வுகளையும் தம்மை பற்றிய தாழ்வான மதிப்பீடுகளையும் உருவாக்கி வருகிறார்கள். காரல் ரோஜர்ஸ் செல்ஃப் தியரி பிக்சர். Phenomenal field, individual and environment. The organism psychological concerned is the locus of all experiences. Experiences includes everything potentially available to awareness that is going on within the organism at any given moment. The totality of experience consists of the phenomenal field. The phenomenal field is the individual frame for references that can only be known to the person. It can never be known to another except theory, empathic inference, and then can never be perfectly known. How the individual behaves depends upon the phenomenal field and not upon the stimulating condition. The phenomenal field should be is not identical with the field of consciousness. Is the symbolization of the sum of our experiences. That the phenomenal field at any given moment is made up of conscious and unconscious experiences. The organism may, however, discriminate and react to an experience that is not symbolized. Rogers called it subception. மிகுந்த கட்டுப்பாடுகளின் காரணமாக குழந்தைகள் தற்கருத்துக்கு அவர்களின் உண்மையான அகவுணர்வுக்கு இடையே போராட்டம் நிகழ்கிறது. பெற்றோரும் ஆசிரியரும் குழந்தைகளால விரும்பப்படாத வகையில் நடந்து கொண்ட போதிலும் அவர்கள் அக்குழந்தை எப்போதும் விருப்பமும் மதிப்பும் கொண்டிருக்க வேண்டும் என்று எண்ணுமாறு கட்டுப்பாடுகள் அமைந்துள்ளன. அதன் விளைவாக குழந்தைகளிடம் உளப்போராட்டம் ஏற்படுகிறது. பெரும்பாலும் தனி மனிதன் தன்னுடைய சமூக எதிர்பார்ப்புகளும் எதிரிடையாக இயங்குகின்றன. தாம் மன வெளிச்சி இயல்பா வெளிக்காட்டுவதை சமூகம் ஏற்றுக்கொள்ளாது என்றும் எண்ணத்தின் காரணமா மனவெழுச்சி வயப்படும் ஆண்கள் தம்மை பற்றிய தாழ்ந்த தற்கருத்துக்கள் கொண்டுள்ளனர். Experience may not be correctly symbolized, in which case the person will behave inappropriately. However, a person tends to check the symbolized experiences against the word as it is. This testing of reality provides one with dependable knowledge of the world, so that one is able to behave realistically. However, some perceptions remain untested or inadequately tested, and these untested experiences may cases on to behave unrealistically and even to one's own dreaming. Example picture. Ideal self, real self. Ideal versus and real you. Although Rogers does not deal with the issue of the true reality, it is apparent that people must have some conception of an external or impersonal standard of reality, for otherwise they could not perform the act of testing an inner picture of reality against an objective one. The question then arises to how people can differentiate between a theories of responsibility subjective image that it is not a correct representation. It's not a correct representations of a reality and not that is what enables people to separate fact from fiction in the subjective world. This is the great paradox of phenomenology. The whole person Rogers writes recently is one who is completely open to the data from internal experiencing and the data from experiencing for the external world. The self. The portion of phenomenal field gradually becomes differentiated. This is the self. Self or self-concept denotes the organized, consistent, conceptual gesture composed to perceptions of the characteristics of the I or me, and the perception of the relationship of the I or me to other and to various aspects of life together. With the value attached to this perception, it is a gestalt which is available to awareness through not necessary in awareness. It is a fluid and changing gestalt, a process, but at any given moment is specific. Example picture for self. Agonism and self congruence and incongruence. The basic significance of the structural concepts agonism and self or Rogers' theory become clear in his discussion of congruence and incongruence between the self as perceived and the actual experience of the organism. When the symbolized experience that constitute the self faithfully mirror the experience of the organism, the person is said to be adjust, matter, and fully functioning. Such a person aspects the entire range of organism experience without treat or anxiety. Individual is able to think realistically. Incongruence between self and organism makes individuals feel threatened and anxious. They behave defensively and their thinking becomes constructed and rigid. Important concept. Phenomenal field. Your total experience. Self. The portion of your personality consisting of perception of I or me. Phenomenal self. Your self-image. Ideal self. The king of person you would like to be. True self. Who you are with your ego stripped away from the you are free to be yourself. Unconditional positive regard. Complete and total acceptance of another. Incongruence, congruence. Congruence, ideal self, self-image, true self. Incongruence, ideal self, self-image, true self. Different dimensions. congruence, suitability between subjective reality and external reality. Incongruence is the degree of correspondence between the self and ideal self. If the discrepancy between self and ideal self is large, the person is dissatisfied and maladjusted. Rogers believed that as the person interacts with the environment and particularly with significant others like parents, brothers, sisters, and various relationships, he began to develop a concept of self that is largely based on the evaluation of others. He also developed a need for positive regard. According to Rogers, this need is either learned or innate. The person then becomes aware of the fact that when he satisfies another individual's need for positive regards, he necessarily experiences satisfaction of this own need for such regards. As a consequence, the desire for positive rewards from others may become more compelling than the individual's agonic value progress. If, for example, the person feels the aggression against others is wrong, but a significant other plays a positive value on it, the person may ignore the validity of his feeling and act in terms of their expectations. This need to seek approval or positive regards from people and to avoid disapproval regards from people, and the avoid disapproval also has a definite impact on self-concept. When experienced or discriminated by the person only if they meet with the approval of others, or are not discriminated because they meet with disapproval, his own self-regards become similarly selective. When this happens, the person is said to have acquired a condition of worth or the feeling that the acceptance of him by others is conditional upon performance of given kinds of behaviors. If, on the other hand, the person experiences only unconditional positive regards from others, then no conditions of worth could be at variance with an organism evaluation experience. In such a case, there could be congruence between self and experience, and the person would, by psychological healthily, this state of affairs, however, is an ideal. We all have conditions of worth placed on our behavior. We all learn in the course of socialization that some of our feeling and behavior as appropriate and other are inappropriate. When these nominate rules are congruent or in line with our agonismic evaluation, we continue our movements towards self-actualization. When the expectation run counter to our innate evaluations, however, problems occur and movement towards actualization is hindered. Congruence between self and organismic experiencing leads to accurate symbolization of experience and positive growth. Incongruence leads to inaccuracy or destroyed symbolization and psychological maladjustment, and vulnerability. If under incongruent conditions, the unpleasant experience is actually symbolized in awareness. A state of anxiety exists. This anxiety then leads to the use of elaborate defense mechanism of coping with the threats. If the incongruence between self and experience is too large or a significant, defense may be unsuccessful and a state of profound disorganization occur. Such a person may be labeled psychotic. Dynamic of personality. The organism has one basic tendency and striving to actualize, maintain, and enhance the experiencing organism. This actualizing tendency is selective, paying attention only to those aspects of the environment that promise to move the person constructively in the direction of fulfillment and wholeness. On the one hand, there is a single motivation force, the self-actualization drive. On the other hand, there is a single goal of life, to become self-actualized or a whole person. அக உணர்வின் இயல்பின அறிய முடியாத சூழ்நிலைகள்ல சிக்கி தவிப்பவர்கள் பிறகு நடத்தினராகிறார்கள். சிலரிடம் தன்னுணர்வு அல்லது தற்கருத்து நன்கு அமைய பெறாமலும் இருக்கக்கூடும். இந்நிலையில ஆளுமை சிதைவு ஏற்படுகிறது. மனவெழுச்சி வெளியீடுகள் மற்றவர்கள் ஏற்றுக்கொள்ளப்படாவிட்டாலும் தனி மனிதன் அந்நியமாதல் இயங்கும் முறைகள் தோன்றுகின்றன. முதல்ல மனவெழுச்சிகளை அவற்றின் விளைவாய் ஏற்படும் நடத்தைகளையோ மற்றவர்கள் ஏற்றுக்கொள்வது ஆளுமை சமநிலைக்கு இன்றியமையாதது. தற்கருத்து உருவாதலுடைய தடைகள் ஏற்பட்டால் உள தடுமாற்றம் ஏற்படும். சமூக எதிர்பார்ப்புகள் தனி மனிதனை சுயமா அல்லது இயல்பா இயங்க விடுறது கிடையாது. பெரும்பாலும் மக்கள் சமூக ஏற்புடைமை எனப்படும் முக மூடி அணிந்தே வாழ்கின்றனர். அதாவது தன்னுடைய இயல்பை மறைச்சு தனக்கு இயலாத செயற்கையா இயங்க வேண்டியதா இருக்கு. பண்பாட்டு சூழ்நிலைக்கும் பண்பாட்டின் எதிர்பார்ப்புக்கும் பெரும்பாலும் தனி மனிதனுடைய மனக்குலைவுகளையும் மன உளைச்சல் தருவதாகவே அமைஞ்சிருக்கு. ஆயினும் இத்தகைய பண்பாட்டு சூழலை விட்டு முழுமையா யாரும் விலகி இருத்தல் அப்படின்றது இயலாத காரியம். The organism actualizes itself along with the line, leads down the heredity, that become more differentiated, more extended, more autonomous and more socialized as it is matured. This basic tendency of growth to actualize and expand oneself is seen to best advantage when an individual is observed over a long period of time. There is a forward movement in the life of every person. Rogers added a new features to the concept of growth when he observed that the forward moving tendency can only operate when the choice are clearly perceived and adequate symbolized. A person cannot actualize oneself unless they are able to discriminate between progressive and regressive way of behaving. There is no inner voice that tells thrust on forward. People have to know before they can choose, but when they do know, they always choose to grow rather than regard. Goal setting. Behavior is basically the goal-directed attempt of the organism to satisfy its need as experienced in the field as perceived. Rogers remains faithful of his phenomenological position by employing the qualifying phrases. However, in discussing these propositions, Rogers admits that need may evoke appropriate behavior, even though the need are not consciously experienced. In fact, recently Rogers has played down the role of consciousness, of self-consciousness, in the functioning of the healthy individual, he writes. In the person who is functioning, well, awareness tends to be a reflective thinker rather than a shape, spotlight of focused attention. Perhaps it is more accurate to say that in such a person, awareness is simply a reflection of something, of the follow of the organism. At that moment, it is only when the functioning is distributed that a sharply self-conscious awareness arises. Rogers introduced a distinction between the actualizing tendency of the organism and a self-actualizing tendency. Following the development of the self-structure, this general tendency towards actualization expressed itself also in the actualizing of the portion of the experience of the organism which is symbolized in the self. If the self and the total experience of the organism and relatively congruence, then the actualizing tendency remaining relatively unified. If the self and experience are incongruent, then the general tendency to actualize the organism may work at cross purpose with the subsystems of the motive, the tendency to actualize the self. Despite the monastic characteristic of Rogers' motivational theory, he has singled out special attention to needs, the need of positive regards and the need of self-regards. Both are learned needs. The former developed in infancy as a consequence of the baby being loved and cared for. The latter is established by various of baby receiving positive regards from others. Rogers' person-centered perspectives. Rogers agreed that people have natural tendencies to grow, become healthy, move towards self-actualization. Three conditions of the facilitate growth: genuineness, acceptance, empathy. The principal features of Rogers' theory, the reader might wonder why it is called person-centered and not organismic-centered. The answer is quite simple. In a fully functions individual, the person is an organism. In other words, it does not make any difference which it is called. Person is perfect because it has more of a psychological connection. The person is an experiencing organism. Person and self are also the same. When the self is completely congruent with the organism, it all comes down to those. The organism, a living, growing, holistic system, is the basic psychological reality. Any deviation from the reality threatens its integrity for the person. Summary. The humanistic approach states that the self is composed of concepts unique to ourselves. The self concept includes three concepts: self-worth, self-image, ideal self also. Rogers self-theory concept: positive regard, lovely sympathy, warmth, acceptance, and respect which we crave from family, friends, and people important to us. Conditional positive regard. Positive regard is we behave in certain acceptable way. Unconditional positive regards. Warmth, acceptance, and love that others show you regardless of your behavior. The principal features of Rogers theory: the Reader might wonder why it is called person-centered and not organism-centered. The answer is quite simple. In a fully functioning individual, the person is the organism. In order, in other words, it does not make any difference which it is called. Person is preferred because it has more of a psychological connection. The person is the experiencing organism. Person and the self are also the same. When the self is completely congruent with the organism, it all comes down to this. The organism, a living, growing, holistic system, is the basic psychological reality. Any deviation from this reality threatens the integrity of the person. Educational implications. Educator as a facilitator. He put a new word, non-direction teaching, where educator is a facilitator, guidance, learners and nutrition. They're learning in order to build their talent and reduce the gap between self-concept and ideal self. Positive educator-learner relationship is stresses upon positive relationship in education. The key to effective education lies in better relationship between learner and educator. Curriculum must be new and modern. He is against traditional education and curriculum. Educator must be an active listener. The educator should be active listener and facilitator in order to guide the learner and developing their learning abilities. Nurturing learners' education should nurture rather than construction or indoctrinate learner. Experience is the highest authority. Rogers' response-centered theory says that environment has create effect on our experiences. Some reference for books. Check your progress. True or false? Carl Ransom Rogers was born in 1902 in Chicago. True or false? Answer is true. Carl Rogers was born in 1902 in Chicago. Is right. Question 2. Experience may not be correctly symbolized, in which case the person will behave inappropriately. True or false? Answer is true. Experience may not be correct, symbolized, in which case the person will behave inappropriately is true. Thank you.